What's up, fam? Hope everybody's doing fantastic out there. Today we are taking a look at a new knife from Daggerr Knives. This is also a channel first for this type of knife. So we are looking at the BLS-05, also known as the Monarch. And as you can see, it gets that name from the fact that it is a balisong or a butterfly knife. A really cool knife, a very well built balisong. You do have a spear point blade here. It is a single edge, so you do have a false edge here on this side. The bite handle is the clip side, just so get that out of the way so I don't forget to talk about that. So as long as you do not have the clip in your hand, then you are free to spin the knife and play whatever, do whatever tricks or whatever you want to do on it. It does have a spring latch here as well. It is a full titanium build, VG10 on the blade steel. These things run around $170, give or take, depending on what retailer you find them at. Just check your favorite retailer. If you guys shop for Daggerr Knives, of course, you'll be able to find where to pick one up at. Specs on it, you're looking at a 3.5-inch blade, 8 inches overall, and just 3.3 ounces, so really nice, lightweight. Like I said, it does have that spring latch, so if you do want to use the knife for actual utility work or for an actual knife itself, you do have that security of having the latch there. It does take some compression to release that latch, so it's not going to just easily release. You do have, again, a false edge here, so when you do grip the knife, you are gripping onto a false edge back here if you want to kind of get that choked up grip. But in like a more standard grip, if you're just using the back of the knife here, then you can certainly do that. Like I said, build quality is very nice on it. It is a bearing system, so it's not just standard bushings in there. It does actually use bearings. Pocket clip doesn't seem to throw the weight of the knife off too bad as far as for what little bit of manipulating that I can do with a balisong. I am not very good at these knives. I'm sure there's beginners out there that are better at these knives than I am. So just keep that with a grain of salt. Or take that with a grain of salt. It's a fun knife for me. It carries well. I've used it a little bit. It actually works well for just a light duty EDC knife. And yeah, let's go ahead and jump into some close-ups on it, and then we will go from there as per usual here. So jumping in, we do have the Daggerr Knives logo pivots here, and the dagger there on the blade, and then your pins. Really nice kind of a distressed blue anodization here, or a tumbled blue anodization on the titanium. And then we do have T6 screws here on the base of the knife. There you have your spring clamps. Again, it does work really well. Kind of a modified usual Daggerr, kind of the screaming skull clip here. A little bit different than what we're used to. Really nice milling on the entire handle. It does handle very nicely. Slightly contoured, so none of the edges are sharp, but they're not rounded off or anything like that. There's your VG10. Opening up the blade here, so we do have a fuller that runs down the full length of the blade. The grinds are very symmetrical, so you can see they're really nicely done on that grind, so you can see it lines up with the tip very nicely. Looking at the sharpening of the knife itself, sharpening looks really nice. Don't have any issues with that. Tip looks nice and symmetrical as well, so you can see that tip grind is very, very nice. Really beautiful black wash here. Plunge grind is actually pretty good on this knife. It's not the best I've seen. It's definitely not the worst, but it does give you room for sharpening there. So it is very much a usable knife. Like I said, I have carried it and used it a little bit. I'm just trying to get used to to having a balisong. I had one many years ago, and I don't even remember what happened to it. It wasn't anything crazy or anything expensive, but it works well. It's going to be really difficult to do any flipping or anything here on camera, but like I said, as long as you don't have the clip in your hand, then you don't have any issues at all. It's very smooth, of course, with the bearings. As far as the handle wiggle or anything like that, so you can see here, it doesn't have any, so it has zero side-to-side movement, zero lash or anything like that. When it's closed, even without the latch, it's very secure. Or excuse me, when it's open, even without the latch, it's very secure. Closing, like I said, it's you have to depress pretty hard to get that latch on. And same thing for opening it. It doesn't just come off very easily. Pocket clip works really well. It actually carries quite nicely. The only thing I've had to kind of kind of teach myself when carrying it is because it is being carried in the in my right pocket. So when I pull it out, I have to remember to rotate it in my hand before I try to pop the latch. Or I can rotate, pop the latch and then rotate it. But once you get used to that, or I guess you could carry it left-handed. Might be easier for carrying left-handed potentially, because then you could just pop the latch and you already have that safe handle in your hand. But for carrying it the way I have been, I just literally take it out of my pocket and then I'll pop the latch and then just rotate it in my hand like that. It's not a big deal. It's like I said, it carries pretty well actually. So outside of that, I mean, like I said, ergonomically, it's a balisong. It's a square handle balisong. It's not going to be the greatest at anything. It's not going to be the best for flipping. It's not going to be the best for carrying, just because it does have squared off handles. But as far as just an everyday carry knife, it doesn't do too awful bad, if I'm being honest. Pretty cool knife, and a fun addition to the collection. Was a Blade Show pickup. I talked with Tim Rev up there and just had a really great time talking with him, and some really cool stuff is happening with that. So just be on the lookout for that. But yeah, anyway, guys, let's go ahead and jump into a few little pieces here. It does only have T6 hardware. The pivots are actually field serviceable. I believe you can use like a dime in there if you don't have a flathead screwdriver. I don't have any change, or I would check it, but I'm pretty sure a dime was able to fit in there, so it is kind of field serviceable in that aspect. The hardware is done very well, so no issues with that. A few size comparisons here. We'll go ahead and check that out. So as per usual, the Pyrite and the Drop Bear, so these are both going to be those sub 8-inch knives. And we'll break into the Militol. Again, just slightly larger than the Militol. Try to get that lined up the best I can. Bring in the Bel Air, followed by the Malibu. Again, these are all going to be that, getting as close to a everybody knife as possible. Pretty much everyone has some of these knives, or one of these knives. And I'm going to go ahead and, while I'm thinking about it, grab one more. Here we have the Penguin, and as B says, everybody needs a Penguin, or everybody has a Penguin. So there's the Penguin. And we will have the PM2. And that is the standard Penguin, so it's the V2, but it is the standard size. Full video on that coming soon. And I have videos on all of these knives on the channel, so make sure y'all check them out. I think the only one I don't have a video on is the PM2, because literally everybody and their brother has a PM2 video, and this one's custom, so it's not really going to, stuff's not really going to be the same. Anyway, yeah, that is your size comparisons. So very interested to see what a lot of you guys think. I know my primary group of channel goers, this probably isn't going to be their cup of tea. I don't know how many of my normal people are into balisongs, but it's a very interesting knife. Like I said, it was a welcome addition to the collection, and one that I am very excited to own and happy to have. So like I said, and the price tag on these isn't too bad either. They're $170, so for what you're getting, full titanium handles and everything, titanium pocket clip, and a pretty decent Japanese steel, Japanese VG10. I really don't have any issues with it at all. So let me know what y'all think. As always, I appreciate each and every one of you. Please remember to be kind, be humble, and be EDC. Take care.